Hey everybody, this is Joel and
Addie.
from moving to mexi.co. Bienvenidos a nuestro canal and to lección número tres of our learning to speak Spanish with Joel and Addie, or should it be with Addie and Joel?
I think Joel and Addie.
You think Joel and Addie, is that what we're going to go with?
Yeah.
Well, we're still open to any suggestions. So if you have a suggestion for what we should formally call this little show that we have on our channel, which are the Spanish lessons with Joel and Addie, please comment below. Let us know some of your thoughts, and maybe you actually like that name, then let us know that, and we'll just keep it going. But if you have some kind of cool ideas, let us know that too. Um, in lesson number 2, we went over a whole bunch of exciting new words in Spanish. We were really, trying to get you into the mode or modo of thinking in Espanol. And we did touch, or we did end on 4 very important verbs. And I don't know if you remember them, Addie. Do you? Because you don't really have to remember. We're gonna be thinking today, so you didn't
Yeah.
actually have to remember anything that you learned from last week's class, because as we start going through the words, you're going to start thinking, and that's how you start vocalizing or start thinking in the language. And the first verb was I want, and do you remember how to say I want?
Quiero.
Quiero. And what about you want?
Quiere.
Okay. And I can,
Puedo.
and you can.
Puede.
Excelente. And let's put this one out to the audience. We're going to give them a few seconds so they can answer first. But what about, do you remember how to say to do or to make, the actual unconjugated verb? Do you guys remember? Or can you think? Addie, what is to do or to make?
Hacer.
Hacer. Very good. Hacer. And I think I may not have touched on this in the last class, where when there's an H in Espanol, the H is siempre silent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you never pronounce the H. So in this case, it's spelled Hacer, which becomes hacer. See? Excelente. And the last verb that we touched on, another very important verb in Espanol, was the verb to have.
Yes.
And how do you say to have unconjugated?
Tener.
Tener. And to say I have, can anyone in the audience remember that? Can you remember how to say I have? Kind of rhymes with, well, it doesn't rhyme with tango, but it sounds very similar. Adelaide?
Uh,
I have.
tengo.
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 Sí, tengo. And you have?
Tiene.
Tiene. Excelente. So how do you say that? How do you say I want?
Quiero.
Perfecto. And how do you say you want?
Quiere.
And how about I can?
Puedo.
And what about I can or I can?
Yo puedo.
Yo puedo. And how about you can?
Puede.
And what about you can?
Usted puede.
And even though we're not teaching everyone this yet, but just testing you in your ability to think about the informal, how about you can informal? You're talking to your friend.
Puedes.
Puedes. And what about you can do it?
Tú puedes.
Tú puedes.
Oh, hacerlo.
Tú puedes hacerlo. Excelente. I kind of threw that in. Perfecto. So the verb again for to make or to do is
Hacer.
hacer. And do you pronounce the H?
No.
Never, right? And what is the word for something? Does anyone out there remember? Do you remember the word for something? Can you think of the word for something? Can you?
Algo.
Algo. So how would you say then, in order to do something? In order to do something. Because I'm throwing something in, so think about it, because there's one other word here that we learned last week, in order to do. Starts with a P.
Oh,
Pa.
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 Pas.
How about para?
Oh, para. Oh, para.
So in order to do it would be
Para
to do
hacer.
it.
Lo.
So in order to do it would be
Para hacerlo.
para hacerlo.
Oh,
Para hacerlo. So that literally means in order, which is para, or we can also be for, but in order to do it is para hacerlo. Okay? Excelente. So how would you say, I want to do something?
Quiero hacer algo.
Quiero hacer algo. Excelente. And how about, you want to do something?
Quiere hacer algo.
And how about, you want to do something?
Quiere hacer algo.
Excelente. Again, remember the inflection in Spanish is muy importante. So, usted quiere hacer algo, o ¿quieres hacer algo? When you're asking the question. So I'm going to change things up a bit. So instead of asking in English, how do you say, I'm going to start asking you in Spanish, how do you say? And personally, I believe that one of the keys to getting into the mindset, and remember, we're really not trying to remember, we're trying to begin to think, to really start thinking in the language that we are learning. And in this case, it is Espanol. So I always found it very important, muy importante, in the past when I was learning new languages, to come up with a simple phrase, something that I could get the accent down right, I could get the pronunciation right, and I would always kind of either start that in my head, or it was something that I could ask someone. So for example, when I was learning Italian, I always had two ways to start it. The first was allora, okay, so allora. Everyone in Italy, do you remember that? It's like, literally, it was like, okay, it's kind of like, okay, it's kind of like, it's allora. So everyone would always say allora, and that would be the way they'd start their conversation. So I would always start a conversation sometimes like that, if it made sense, or I would do the allora in my head because it got me into the frame of mind to speak Italian. The other one I used was posso fare una domanda? Posso fare una domanda, which literally meant, can I ask you a question? And why was that importante for Italiano? Well, it was because a lot of times when we were in Italy, I'd always have a question. I'd have to ask someone a question. So I would say, posso fare una domanda? And that would get me in the mindset of Italian. But anyways, we are here to learn Spanish, but I was just trying to give you examples that the key to any language is getting into the mindset of thinking. So the more that you can think, the easier it is going to be to learn it. So if you can come up with a phrase or a question that you can really, really perfect because it's nothing that you don't even remember anymore, you just think it, then that's always going to help you progress. So this is the one we're going to start with you guys. We're going to start with ¿cómo se dice? Okay, so ¿cómo in Espanol is how. Se is a pronoun where literally means oneself, for example, and dice comes from the verb unconjugated. Decir, okay, I say is, think it, digo. Excelente. And you say is?
Dice.
Okay. How do you say is ¿cómo se?
Se llama.
No,
Oh,
that's
¿cómo?
your name. ¿Cómo se?
Dice.
¿Cómo se dice? Okay, so when we're going through these lessons and I say ¿cómo se dice? En español literally means how does one say in Spanish, and then I'll say the English word. Deal?
Mm-hmm.
Sale?
Sale vale.
Sale vale. Okay. Interesting, we kind of went into that, but sale is, if you're coming to Mexico, it's going to be one of these slangs that's used quite a bit here, and it's turned into something that means okay. We're trying to really discover the origin of how it became. Well, sale comes from the verb salir. It likely started because there was some type of agreement to move forward with something, some type of agreement between parties to go somewhere, and they agreed by saying sale, like literally, I go, like you go, okay? But now sale is just, okay, like it's an agreement, like, do you want to go there? Sale.
Mm-hmm.
Or it just ends the conversation like we're in agreement. And in Spain, if you go to Spain, they have something very similar, but they say vale.
Oh, vale. Oh.
Sale vale. Okay, so in Spain, from the original verb valere, which in this it has to do with value or valor, that's doesn't really apply to it anymore. It's just okay. So vale means okay, sale means okay. So if you're in Mexico, you would say sale at the end. If you hear that, again, it's not proper Spanish, so to speak, but people say it here all the time. So if you hear it, you'll know what they mean. And if you're in España or Spain, they will say vale.
Mhm.
And sometimes they say here, and it's just to be kind of funny,
Yeah.
sale vale. Okay? They're kind of like saying the two together. Okay. So, Addie, ¿cómo se dice I can?
Puedo.
Mhm. ¿Cómo se dice I have?
Tengo.
Okay. Y recuerda, do you remember, cómo se dice hunger?
Hambre.
Hambre. Hambre. Hambre. And remember, you won't say hambre if you get a hamburguesa, which is a,
Hamburger.
you don't ask the waiter for a hamburguesa, you ask for a
Hamburguesa. Hamburguesa.
hamburguesa. Very good. Excelente. So, ¿cómo se dice I am hungry?
Tengo hambre.
Tengo hambre. And how would you say, or ¿cómo se dice, do you want to eat something now?
Quiero.
No.
¿Quiere comer algo ahorita? Ahora.
Yeah, ahora, you could say ahorita, which is like kind of a cute way to say right now.
Mhm.
Ahorita, ahora mismo, ahorita, or ahora. And why don't you want to eat?
Porque no quiere comer.
See, why don't you want to eat now?
Porque no quiere comer ahora.
Do you want to eat something now?
¿Quiere comer algo ahora?
Excelente, Adelaide. Adelante. So if I say adelante, what am I saying?
Like, go on.
Yeah, adelante means forward. And sometimes if, again, almost like when you say sale, except adelante is really proper, you'd say, you know, adelante, like forward we go. So forward we go with the lesson adelante. All words that end in ari, which is A-R-Y, are basically 99% of them are the same in Espanol, but they just have to change a little bit. So, for example, like necessary, vocabulary, or contrary, so that's your A-R-Y words, so would become ario.
Mhm.
Okay, so vocabulary would be
Vocabulario.
vocabulario. So contrary would be
Contrario.
no. It's the same. Contrary would be first say it in so contrario. Okay, that would be like without accent, right? Contrario.
Contrario.
Now try to say it in Espanol with the contrario. Contrario. It's hard. A lot of people have a hard time trilling their R. So don't worry. So you can just say contrario.
Contrario.
No, contrario.
Contrario.
No, contrar.
Contraro.
No, contrario.
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 So contrario.
Contrario.
Okay, that is close enough. So we're all going to have our words that we're going to struggle with. I struggle with words all the time. Some words they roll off my tongue like nothing. Other words I struggle with, and it's just going to happen. When that happens, just go back to the basics. Like, so contrario, if you're having a hard time with that one, just say it like contrario, okay? Like say it completely gringo, okay? Contrario. And then as you get that down pat, you can start working on the actual pronunciation, contrario.
Contrario.
Es mejor, it's better, okay? So you got, so how would you say to the contrary?
A la contrario.
But it's masculine, so
Oh, A-L.
al contrario.
A.
No. See, ala
Ala.
is feminine, al is masculine because this is a masculine word. Al
Al
contrario.
contrario.
Hey, excelente.
Oh.
Okay. So, ¿cómo se dice? It is not necessary for me because I don't need it now. It is not necessary
No es necesario para mí porque no es.
because I don't
Oh.
need it now.
Porque no lo necesito
Ajá.
ahora.
Excelente. No es necesario para mí porque no lo necesito ahora. Excelente, Adelaide. ¿Y cómo se dice I'm sorry, but I don't have it and I don't want it because I don't need it now?
Lo siento,
But I don't have it.
pero no tengo.
No, but I don't have it.
Oh, lo siento, pero no lo tengo.
And I don't want it.
Y no necesito.
And I don't want it.
Oh, y no quiero.
And I don't want it.
Y no quiero.
And I don't want it. And it I don't want.
Oh, y no lo quiero.
Because I don't need it now.
Porque no lo necesito ahora.
Excelente. Lo siento, pero no lo tengo. Y no lo quiero porque no lo necesito ahora. I'm sorry, but I don't have it. And I don't want it because I don't need it. Okay. What about, let's go to, okay. So again, contrary would be?
Contrario.
Oh, whoa! You got it. You kind of said that with a little bit of an Italian flow, so maybe that's your key. And vocabulary would be?
Vocabulario. Vocabulario.
Vocabulario. And one thing with the V is not not vocabulary, and I do that too, but the proper way to pronounce it is like a B. Vocabulario. Vocabulario.
Vocabulario.
Vocabulario.
Vocabulario.
Yes, vocabulario. Okay, the word for to see with your eyes is ver. Very good. And again, I said ver, but how would I pronounce ver? Ver. It's the same as B. I make that mistake all the time, and that's how usually people can really figure out that you're not from here, even if you got your accent down perfect. It's those little things like when you say ver as opposed to ver.
Yeah.
Okay?
Ver.
Using the word it, which is lo, right? We're going to say, just say, actually, now using the word it, which is lo, how would you say see it?
Verlo.
Verlo. Very good, excelente.
Verlo.
Verlo. ¿Y cómo se dice verlo? Sí, I did that again. I said verlo, 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 verlo. Okay? ¿Y cómo se dice I want to see it?
Quiere.
I want.
Verlo.
Quiero verlo. Okay? Why do you want to see it?
Why do you want
Yeah,
to see
why
it?
do you want to see it?
Porque quiere verlo.
¿Por qué quiere verlo? Excelente. And how about why don't you want to see it?
Porque no quiere verlo.
¿Por qué no quiere verlo? What about I can see it?
Puedo verlo.
Puedo verlo. Excelente. You can see it now.
Puede verlo ahora.
Yeah? Or how about can you see it now?
Puede verlo ahora.
¿Puede verlo ahora? Excelente. I can't see it.
No puedo verlo.
No puedo verlo. So to make or to do is
Hacer.
hacer, and to do it,
Hacerlo.
Hacerlo. And remember, hacer is spelled,
H-A-C-E-R.
and do you pronounce the H?
No.
You never pronounce the H. So I don't want to do it that way because I cannot do it.
No quiero hacerlo así porque no quiero.
Because I cannot do it.
Oh, porque
I cannot
porque no puedo
do it.
hacerlo.
Hacerlo. No quiero hacerlo así porque no puedo hacerlo. Okay? Why can you not do it?
Porque no puede hacerlo.
¿Por qué no puede hacerlo? I want to know why you cannot do it that way.
Quiero saber por qué no puede hacerlo
That way.
así.
Yo quiero saber por qué no puede hacerlo así. So, palabras en inglés que terminan en ance o ense, so words, palabras en inglés, in English, que terminan, that end in ance y ence, well, they're basically the same. They're just a different pronunciation and the ending of the word is changed. So ENC becomes encia and ANC becomes ansia. Okay? So preference would be,
Preferencia.
okay, and importance would be,
Importancia.
and influence would be,
Influencia.
excelente. And the difference, do you remember how to say the?
La
La, L-A. And in this case, it is a feminine word, so we're not going to say el diferencia, we are la diferencia, okay? So what about a difference?
Una diferencia.
Una diferencia, and again, it is feminine, not masculine, so you wouldn't say un diferencia, you would say una diferencia, just like you would say, and everyone knows this one, if you've come to Mexico, everyone knows how to say una cerveza por favor. So cerveza is a feminine word, so you would say una, right? If you were asking for a glass of water, you would say un vaso con agua, por favor. Un vaso, not una vaso, okay? And a lot of people say un vaso de agua, which is a glass of water. Technically, it's not correct because that would be a glass made of water. But if you say that, you make that mistake, someone will bring you a glass of water, right? Okay, so una. So the preference would be?
La preferencia.
And the difference would be?
La diferencia.
And a preference would be?
Una preferencia.
Una preferencia. And what about what preference?
¿Qué preferencia?
Que preferencia. And so the word for what is que. Q-U-E, pronounced que. Okay? So, ¿cómo se dice, do you have a preference?
Tiene una preferencia.
Una preferencia. Tiene una preferencia. And do you remember how to say night in Spanish? Do you?
Noche.
Noche. And how about the night?
La noche.
La noche. And why?
Because it's feminine.
It's feminine. And what about, how do you say day?
Día.
And how would you say the day?
El día.
El día. I struggled with this for years. Like, it's like, well, día ends in a, so it must be la día. No, it's el día. Noche ends in e, must be el noche, but no, it's la noche. So there's going to be these little things, but you'll get it. So the night is?
La noche.
And tonight is? Or this night?
Esta noche.
Esta noche. So the night, la noche, tonight, or this night is esta noche. E-S-T-A. Esta. Okay? So it is for tonight would be?
Es para esta noche.
Es para esta noche. So once more, for what restaurant do you have a preference tonight?
¿Para qué restaurante tiene una preferencia?
Tonight.
Oh. esta noche.
Okay. ¿Para qué restaurante tiene una preferencia esta noche? Okay. What restaurant do you have a preference for tonight? Now, what about the word where?
¿Dónde?
Donde. Okay. Everyone's probably heard of donde. That's a super important word because if you go to a store, if you have to ask directions, 9 out of 10 times you're always using the word.
¿Dónde
And how do you
está?
spell donde?
D-O-N-D-E.
D-O-N-D-E. Donde. So where do you want to eat?
¿Dónde quiere comer?
Donde quiere comer. And what about the word in Spanish for dinner? The dinner.
Ah,
La
la cena.
La cena. And cena is spelled C-E-N-A. La cena. And it comes from the verb cenar, which means to dine. Okay? So to dine in Spanish is cenar. So then where do you want to have dinner tonight?
¿Dónde quiere
Mm-hmm.
tener?
No.
Oh,
Where do you want to have dinner? Where do you want to dine tonight?
¿Dónde quiere cenar
Tonight.
esta noche?
¿Dónde quiere cenar esta noche? Using the word dine. Okay? So thinking about it, we dine. But we would always say in English, where do you want to go have dinner today? We use the word go. You could just say, and we do say in Espanol, ¿Dónde quiere cenar esta noche? Where do you literally want to dine tonight? Now, do you have a preference?
¿Tiene una preferencia?
Tiene una preferencia. What preference do you have?
¿Qué preferencia tiene?
¿Qué preferencia tiene? For what restaurant do you have a preference tonight?
¿Para qué restaurante tiene una preferencia para esta noche?
Okay. ¿Para qué restaurante tiene ¿Para qué restaurante tiene una preferencia esta noche? Tengo una pregunta. ¿Para qué restaurante tiene una preferencia esta noche? ¿Qué restaurante?
Mi preferencia es la cervecería.
La cervecería Bahía de Banderas?
Uh-huh.
Ok, esta noche vamos a cenar, we're going to dine, a la restaurante, pero no es un restaurante, es un restaurante, pero es la cervecería Bahía de Banderas. And it is a brewery here in town where the brewmaster makes incredible cerveza increíble. He's very, very, very meticulous. He is essentially an artist, un artista. And I'm saying un artista because he's a man, but artista is artista. In the case where it's a man, it's un. If it was a woman, it would be una artista. But anyways, he's a beer artist. They have an incredible kitchen. They have incredible beers. And that's where we're going to go tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, listo. Muchas gracias a todos. And that is lección número 3. And stay tuned next week for lección número
4.
Okay, so we're going to say nos vemos y hasta
Luego.
y adiós.